awesome. This is a great day. We're here, Michael Mann on Planetary Health First, Mars Next, and I'm super excited. We have amazing special guest, Jamey Edwards. I met him in person, but I feel like this is one of the greatest things about this, or for me at least, selfishly having a show, is I feel like after this show, I will feel like I'll know Jamey even more. But for you or those who don't know Jamey, would you just quickly introduce yourself? You got a really cool background, Jamey. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, first of all, Michael, great to be here. And I loved the intro with the love and the kindness and everything that you were flashing up there. So thank you for what are very positive messages that I think we now need more than ever. So I'm Jamey Edwards. I'm a serial social impact founder, built a career of co-founding and leading healthcare industry vertical leaders in multiple spaces. I've always been on this mission to humanize healthcare. That started off with me leading an emergency room physician group in Southern California called Emergent Medical Associates. While I was there, we ended up turning that group into one of the leading hospital-based multi-specialty groups in the country. So doing ER, hospital, anesthesia, medicine. So I've really cut my teeth on the provider side of healthcare. And then while I was there, co-founded another company called Cloudbreak Health, and Cloudbreak brought language interpreters to the point of care for limited English proficient and deaf and hard of hearing patients. And between the two of those businesses, which I was running as CEO, both for about a 6-year period overlapping, I kind of fell in love with the concept of health equity and leveling the playing field for the underserved and social determinants of health, and taking this much more broader view of medicine than just like patient in hospital bed or patient in urgent care, and trying to take what is more of like a holistic solution set and apply it to the space in a positive way, and realizing that while it's great that we talk about like patient-centric care, we need to be talking about human-centric care, because the clinical teams and the caregivers taking care of those patients are equally as important as the patient themselves and that patient's success, and chance to heal, chance to get better, and chance to be healthy. So currently I'm the president and chief strategy officer at Cairns Health, CAIRNS. AI is right in the middle of it, and we obviously do a ton of AI. So we are a solution targeted at polychronic patients and seniors, and we use radar to put the patient in context in their home and then connect them to their care system using artificial intelligence and a large language model who can help intervene and keep them on their care plan. So a lot of the times, these patients have very complex care plans. They might be 40 pages long, Michael. And, that's a hard thing for a patient or a loved one to follow. But if we can break them down into little bite-sized pieces, little behavioral nudges that allow them to be reminded when to take their medications, remind them when their physical therapy appointment is, engage with them using their voice, which is the ultimate interoperability tool, to help them voice engage with their healthcare, we think we're increasing the chance of their success of adhering to that care plan and staying healthy and aging in place successfully by a factor of 10. So excited to be working on that. And then prior to this, I was an entrepreneur. I'm still an entrepreneur in residence at Startup Health, but I was their chief platform officer for 2 years and got exposure to working with over 400 plus companies across 15 different moonshots and helping support other founders' journeys, which has become a passion of mine as well.
Wow. Well, that's a great background. I'm glad you introduced yourself, because I could not have gotten that like that, and that breadth and that depth kind of helps give us calibration for the audience. I mean, why they should tune in, and that's sort of what we're here about. And then I think we need to do another intro though for this motto here, which is on the back of your, don't give up the ship. So tell us a little bit about that and why that's so important.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in kind of symbols and, things that are authentic. I love like authenticity and things that are like based in history. And so in my office, I have, a 48-star American flag. I've got a Navy Jack that's a blue flag with a bunch of stars on it that flew over a warship in World War II. I have a California Republic flag that flew over a ranger station at Yosemite for a number of years. It was all tattered and water stained. And I just feel like all these things tell a longitudinal story about their history and what they've seen and where they've been. So behind my desk, I have this flag that says, "Don't give up the ship." And over the course of my entrepreneurial journey, I've just realized that, being persistent and having the right mindset over a journey that is very much like a roller coaster. And there are times where you probably want to bail out, jump overboard, and give up the ship. But if you can be persistent and continue to, steer through the storms and not give up the ship, that's going to increase your likelihood of success by a pretty big number. So, it's become an entrepreneurial motto of mine.
Cool. I love that. Do you do any stuff like, I know not like I'm saying the water ice buck, not that whatever that thing is people do now where they jump in the ice bath for a minute or two.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your stuff like if there's a routine or sports, performance stuff that the body to keep you, because I know that's the whole part of that's important for founders and people.
Yep.
Do you have any routines?
So I'm like an intensely social creature. So I don't enjoy working out because I find working out like very solitary, but I enjoy sport. So playing volleyball, playing golf, skiing. I played ice hockey up until a few years ago in a league here in Los Angeles. And I love just the camaraderie of being out there. And it's really how I like to burn calories. It's been more of a struggle lately because I've needed to rely on myself more just to work out on my own. And so I'm a work in progress there. Michael, I'd like to tell you, I've got some upside there. I can still work out that extra day a week or, make sure I get to the gym. But that's an area where I probably need some improvement.
No, but I like what you're saying with the community sort of flavor with the ice hockey, whatever it be, just to try to.
I'm a lover of team sport, man.
Yeah,
I'm a lover of team sport. I like, that connectivity of being a part of something bigger than myself is like a big part of what motivates me.
Yeah, and then it helps. It kind of this competition in a good way. It's kind of like you all are rising together. I think there's a good element of competition with that community with team sports too, I think. And then
agreed. And by the way, it's like, it's kind of like, it shows, it's one of those arenas where if you play team sport, you're kind of relying on somebody else to help lift you up while you're lifting them up. And like, I like that, that dynamic a lot.
So man, we got a little bit of airtime. So don't give up the ship. We can't go all the way, for whatever amount of minutes on it. So what do you want to cover today? I'm excited about 2024 finishing up. We're really more to 2025. We got a year ahead of us. Yeah. That's the way I see it, kind of thought-provoking, kind of dreaming out what the year is going to be. I feel like this is a great time to have those discussions in healthcare, and especially with people like you on what do you think what are you excited about this year coming forward?
So interesting, Michael. Like this year has been like so reflective for me because I turned 50 in July, right? So it's a milestone birthday year.
So you're 74. We're both 74 guys.
Yeah, 1974.
Same year.
Baby.
That's
Great
it,
year.
man.
Great year.
Nice.
What month is your birthday?
October.
Okay, so you literally just turned 50. So congratulations to you.
So we should join AARP now, right?
By the way,
get all the discounts.
Brother, that was like the biggest surprise. Was literally the day I turned 50. There's like something from AARP offering me that free cooler to join, and I was like, man, that cooler looks pretty cool. I don't know that I would have like jumped on it before, but I really wanted the AARP drink cooler.
I have to tell you, I heard a joke, but I think you could do it up even as early as 35 years old. And I've heard there are some people just like, for credit card memberships, you get so much more than what you pay for. So anyway,
good to know there's a good ROI on AARP.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
So, it's been like this big reflective year, and, God, there's so much happening in the world right now. And I find a lot of it, like really distressing. And that's why when, you had the intro to this, podcast and show, being able to see like love and kindness pop up, like those have been really important themes for me. It's why I sit on the board of some of the philanthropies I do, like the Pink Socks.life, and the American Heart Association. But like, these are important philanthropies that are, spreading, love and kindness and better health. And man, we just need more of that messaging these days. And I think in this uncertain times, like the world's been through so much the last few years, right? Like pre-COVID, things felt like they were going pretty well. And then COVID hits, and it's been like this big derailment of society at large and even the world at large. And, COVID, I think, showed us how connected we could all be as a planet. Because I remember this one time where basically everyone was sheltering in place, like the entire world. Mm-hmm. And you're like, whoa, like it's the world against this microorganism. And like how powerful that was for me to show that, hey, if we could all, like, the internet and social media and all this stuff, which has had a lot of negative effects on society, but for this one time, like, we were all connected in a way that I thought was like really positive, where it was us against something else. And it showed that unity could really happen. And then we kind of got back to regular way business post COVID, but I think to our detriment. And, you know, as things got back to normal, I think there was a little less sense of community. I think we had built more, you know, walls or fences than bridges. Mm-hmm. And I think we're now seeing how that took shape from a governmental standpoint and just a general community standpoint. And I find some of that kind of distressing. So I'm hoping as we turn a corner here from 2024 to 2025, that 2025 can be this year of like tribal motivation and us feeling more like a community and people really coming together and realizing that we can talk to each other about issues and we don't need to be shouting past each other.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I hope you're right as well. I would also say as a positive thing, maybe it's also a nudging, kind of a impetus to really be that voice, be that individual, to create your own little collectives. If you can't find a mass monolithic unity within, you know, let's just say globally, can we do it locally or through different channels and I guess that's why you're so involved with like the pink socks, my gosh, or those sort of things where you're going to find those people that share those values and you feed on each other. So,
Agreed.
So I imagine, will you be at Vive or
I will be at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference coming up in San Francisco. And then, we'll be at Vive. We obviously just got done with Health, which I thought was great. They always put on a good show. Rich Scarfo and Jonathan Weiner, and those guys do a great job. Although I heard they just sold the conference to someone. So congratulations to them for building something of value. But it's always been a really just great gathering. And, you know, it's always, I don't know about you, Michael, but it's always hard for me to motivate to go to conferences because during COVID, we all got very comfortable sleeping in our own beds. But I feel like travel is back. Right. And I've been traveling pretty much every week of this year. And it's always hard for me to go to conferences, but I'm always really happy I went because the conference family is there. And there's a lot of us who have like grown up in the industry together, who are all either now, you know, running companies or health systems or whatever it might be. And it's really cool to just be able to be in an environment where you can get back together with kind of old friends and talk about the direction of the industry and how you can support it.
Yeah. I like what you're saying, about that, with the conferences, getting motivated, because one of Alex, who was one of our guests, Alex Moschini, with the Hive, he's got a few other things, but he's a clinician. He was we had him on at Health, just sharing his thoughts about what makes health special and kind of just the conferences in general. It's about the people, about
that's right.
People, you know, and that connectivity there. And so there is something really special about that, building those relationships and that trust, and then that just that time. So what do you think makes, what do you see as making that? Do you find like a dinner, or where do you find those things that, like, is it just coffee or just seeing and passing? I mean, what do you feel really really makes that, even to get more of that? If you,
I always, whenever I go to conferences, I always try and throw in a little dash of the unexpected, right? So Health last year was when they just opened the Sphere. And so I was able to get tickets and take some of my team to go see U2 at the Sphere, right? So not your typical, like, hey, I'm in, Las Vegas and I'm gambling or going to a nice restaurant. I really wanted to do something that I felt like was local to Vegas. And so this year we were there. I met, I think they're like great groups convening people like Scale Health and Startup Health, and they're having dinners, and those are great places to meet people who are like-minded and, trying to push the industry forward. But this year, the Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Golden Knights were playing the LA Kings in hockey. And I always wanted to go see the new stadium. Like, to me, sports has changed Las Vegas. They have two new stadiums. They got the T-Mobile Arena, and then the football stadium. I think it's Allegiant. I think sports has changed Vegas for me. Like, it's made it a lot more less Vegas-y and a lot more like a normal city. And so I got 4 people together who loved hockey, and we went to go see a Golden Knights game,
Mhm.
and it was awesome. It was like a little great piece of local flavor and super entertaining and fun. And I ended up going with people that I didn't really know. So, but we'd all just like decided we had hockey in common, and we were talking at the conference saying, what are you going to do tonight? And we're like, hey, what if we all got tickets? And it was just this very serendipitous coming together of people, and we've all been talking afterwards. It's been really cool.
Yeah, I love that. It's something.
It's a reminder of like what's great about conferences, right? And what's
Yeah.
great about just connecting with other people.
But the Sphere, gosh, I want to work for you. Go to the U2 concert, man. That's awesome.
It was definitely a lot of fun, and it was a very like spur of the moment type of thing, like hop on StubHub and see what you could get tickets for.
It seems like everyone that does that, it's U2 and then also the Dead and Company. I don't know if I missed the Dead and Company, but that would have been pretty cool, I guess. But
yeah,
U2,
U2 I think was definitely a highlight because it was so early in the Sphere's history. But I heard Dead and Company was great, and I think the Eagles played there.
I know,
too.
I heard them too. I heard about them.
Yeah.
So what you have any plans that you're trying to do at Vive, kind of making something special, or are you still pre-Vive mode?
Well, when I was running Cloudbreak, we always made sure to have one of these like little serendipity gatherings. It wasn't like a big party, but was, invite only, and trying to put people together that we thought would want to meet with each other and generate like what we called real relationships. Our company right now at Cairns is probably a little too small to throw something like that. So we've been leveraging other people again, like Scale Health and the law firm Cooley frequently has good events. And some other folks, we've had good events. Like if you go to JP Morgan, the Kane Brothers event is always a fun one. So, it's been, I don't know that I've got anything particular in the works for Vive besides to say that Vive last year was in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
The year before it was Nashville, and now it's back to Nashville. And I think Nashville is an incredible place to have the conference because it's such a great city and it's very self-contained. And so I think it was a really smart move to move it back to Nashville. So excited to go to Nashville and experience some local music and do some things like that.
Yeah, I am too. And I got to get going, hurry up and start imagining and visioning what, it's such a special place with so many different opportunities. And then with the conference and all that, but you got to really, you don't just show up and think that, there's some spontaneous things, but you kind of want to plan it out. But
brother, a little bit of planning always pays off, right?
Yeah. So you're here. We're talking. Let's talk a little bit about. God, forgive me, but we know this new administration's coming in. We won't talk political red or blue, but what do you think? Let's just say, as a strategist, as you're in healthcare, what do you see about this new administration within the healthcare sphere, if you will?
I think a lot of uncertainty, and I don't want to prejudge anything and say I think there's some change coming, and I can't judge yet whether that change is bad or good. And I would like to believe it's going to be good, but I think you have to be planning for what is a pretty unstable environment coming up, just because with the advent of the cast of folks who are being forecast to be in the cabinet or being recommended to the cabinet and appointed, these are all some people who are brand new to government. Well, that could be good or bad, right? It could be good because it's fresh ideas and, but it could be bad because there's inexperience there. And so I think there's a bunch of these pro and con discussions that are going to be having over the next little bit. You've got a situation where you've got, a president who's obviously loved by a lot of the country, but not the whole country. And in an environment where it's pretty polarized right now. And I think that's the big problem to me is that there's so much polarization. Because I think it used to be you could vote for a president and you're like, well, look, I want my guy, but the other guy's not so bad. But I think each side of the table here feels like the other side is borderline evil. And I think that's not a great dynamic for the country. And so finding a way to, again, going back to that uniting theme, to get people having discussions instead of shouting past each other, because I feel like everyone's like, well, if you like that person or you voted for that person, then I can't talk to you. And it should kind of be the opposite. It should be, no, we can absolutely talk to each other, and we should be talking to each other about the issues and what's important, because I still think in my heart of hearts, it used to be, Michael, that we really identified as Americans.
Yeah.
right? Like our big affinity group in this country was that we were Americans and we were proud of our country. And I think now people are identifying as a Democrat or a Republican or MAGA or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like us to all start identifying as Americans again. I think that that's the healthy dynamic.
No, I love that. And I just got back from Boston. I feel like I did the Freedom or the tour, the 2.5 hour. It was cold. It was cold this weekend on it, but it was special. We finished up at Bunker Hill, which wasn't Bunker Hill. The Battle of Bunker Hill was not Bunker Hill. Now, forgive me, I don't know what the other battle of that hill was, but we have to remember that we collectively have a lot of time together as humans on this place, and it wasn't just by accident we got here. And I think I like how you're phrasing it. I also think, when I look at, I'm going to throw out, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think we would all agree that we don't want red 40 and yellow 6 in everything we eat and Fruity Pebbles. Would we agree that our foods should probably not have chemicals?
Pretty broken right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I would think that would be good, and maybe FDA should be, whatever. But now, if I said anything about vaccines, that's another problem where that could be problematic. I'm not going to bring that up because that's a can of worms. But I think we could agree that if there is 1,000 chemicals that are not in Europe because they've said, hey, these are probably not good, and we're not going to do this because there's, reason for carcinogen levels or whatever, and I don't know. That's kind of concerning to me, but so I would think we would be able to agree on that one.
Well, look, I think there used to be a point in time where the government attracted kind of the best of the best. And maybe I'm mistaken, but I kind of always felt like that. And we revered the office of the presidency. And I think in this day and age where, we need to stop thinking about the other side as evil. Like we didn't recognize their people. And there's a lot of people in this country that are hurting, which is causing, a lot of these attitudes to raise to the surface. And I'm a big believer that like, hey man, believe what you want. Just don't let it negatively impact someone else. Right. Like we should all be here to support each other at the end of the day. And I think people are more alike than they are different and want the same things. We want security. We want prosperity. We want to be able to pay for our families. We don't want to be overtaxed. Like all these things I think are pretty universal. And so I think people on both sides are more alike than they're realizing right now. And I think instead with the media, the way it currently is, like you only hear really polarizing opinions because that's what gets views. And so the more bombastic you can be on either side, the more airtime you're going to get. And I don't know, that's not a great dynamic for us as people, when at the end of the day, we're all more alike than we are different. And I think, there's some cool things that we could do from a governmental standpoint that would be interesting, like move to 1 6-year term for president so you don't have to worry about reelection. Put term limits in place so people in government have to go back and live by the laws they put into place as opposed to voting themselves a different healthcare plan than the rest of the country. Do a year of service after high school. And this is actually one of the things I think might be the most important one. Go work on it doesn't have to be military. Go work on building a bridge in Tennessee if you're from the West Coast, and realize that the people on the other side are like, these are people who have very similar wants and dreams than you, and take some civic pride. I feel like we live a little bit in an entitlement culture right now where people feel like they deserve things as opposed to being grateful for the situation that they're in. So, I think there are some simple things like that would go a long way to helping people come together instead of ripping us apart.
Yeah, I would like if we were interacting with more different, people from different backgrounds, and, if you could do that earlier on, civic pride, doing volunteering, building things together. I think a lot of the time when, if you go for mission trips or whatever overseas and you're helping as a group, that sort of thing. I like how you're thinking that way. While we're here, what other areas are you diving into? I mean, I don't want to bring up AI, but we could. I mean, what other topics?
I'm living it every day.
Yeah,
I'm living it every day. Look, I took this latest gig because I wanted to build my AI capabilities.
When you
it was
mean
one thing.
gig, what you're doing a lot of gigs.
Yeah,
You have a
so
lot of
currently
involvement.
my role at Cairns Health is president and chief strategy officer.
Okay.
So, I really took this job because there's this whole AI revolution happening around me, and I was like just I was like surface level knowledgeable about it. And every time it's been like that in my career, I've said, well, no, let me dive in and actually do some work in the space so I can learn it from the ground up. So from that standpoint, that's what I'm doing. And I'm learning artificial intelligence and machine learning and what it takes to develop those technologies and how to train them and all the different prompting that goes on. And I'm get to work on both sides of it, because on the one side, I get to work with the artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms that we use for intelligent ambient sensing. So taking the radar and having that radar get a signal back, and then through signal processing, being able to see what heart rate is, breathing rate, sleep stages, all those patient contexts in the room. Are you in bed? Are you out of bed? And learn what it takes to create those algorithms and how you validate them so that they can be and show clinical efficacy of this as a tool that can be used in a healthcare space. And then on the flip side, there's the large language model work. And we're using the LLMs to intervene based on what the artificial intelligence is seeing in the sensing. Now it's time to say, well, how can we be helpful? Well, you can be helpful by driving a low-level intervention at the point of care to get that patient to take their medication, to get them to go to their physical therapy appointment, to educate them about their condition, because they can ask the AI, well, I have X, what should I be thinking about, or how should I be eating? Those types of just very basic things to help ease the strain of, polychronic patients, of seniors, and most importantly, of those that take care of them. Like, we have a huge problem in this country right now with clinical shortages in terms of team. So doctor shortages, nursing shortages, x-ray tech shortages, whatever it might be. And then, on the flip side of that, we've created this environment where like healthcare is not a preferred place to work anymore. Mm-hmm. And as a result, if you're a kid coming out of school, like it used to be, well, I want to be a doctor. Well, not that many kids coming out of school one of these days want to be doctors. And I think over the last few years, it's been the first time in history where some of these residency programs haven't been full.
Wow.
Right. So how do we create and make healthcare cool again and a noble calling that people want to do? And I think you do that by making the environment better for our current physicians and clinical teams, and also the caregivers. We have this caregiver population who has a second job of taking care of their loved one, and it is stressful, and it causes anxiety, and it causes financial pressure. And being able to support those caregivers and ease their burdens is another big mission of ours.
Yeah, I can speak firsthand on that. As a, my father, he's 92. And so my mother is the primary caregiver. And gosh, it's so much, I have to do some stuff, help him every once in a while. It just is what it is. And so he was in hospice for 6 months, got recert another 6 months. They dropped him, told my mom to appeal, formal Medicare appeal. She won her appeal. So he's back in hospice. That alone, just helping her by telling her that. Yeah. And oh my God. I mean, and so just the level of, the physical level too, not just the mental burden of navigation, what is another problem with caregiving, but just the showering, all these sort of things from, it's just too much for my mom. Thank goodness we have a caregiver from a long-term care policy, but it is just immense that this really should be a big part of the new election talk. This needs to be way more immersed in healthcare. So I'm really glad that what you're doing. It's just still, hospice was the only answer, and there should be other answers. And that's just, my dad does not need to be at a hospital. There's nothing at this point. He didn't want to go a year ago, and that's when we finally were luckily he went. And it's just, we need a system that's a little more, we are getting more and more frail of a population. So anyway.
Yeah, look, if you take a look at kind of the two biggest trends in this country, right? It's like, one is a rapidly aging population without enough people to take care of them. And two is this movement to hospital at home, or using the home
Mhm.
as the most satisfying venue of care. And the more we can get people to age in place, the happier they're going to be, and the lower the overall cost of their care is going to be. And I read a statistic lately that like blew my mind. It was like 90% of the $4.3 trillion of healthcare GDP is spent on aging and polychronic patients.
Mhm.
Like, that's staggering, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of that is based as like money spent on administration or on care that was unnecessary or whatever it might be. So, one, really sorry to hear, about your dad and, the current situation there. But two, it's like, man, like if we could just keep people in their homes for longer, like that's the best solution.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I mean, and that's the only thing that the hospice really, when you look at what job is it doing, what is it solving, it's just the burden, the fear, the worry, my mom having to call 911 or the paramedics, and then we have a 24/7 nurse just
Yep.
when he's having issues. And then I mean, that was mainly the thing because he got to a point. I mean, people don't. There's just nothing really functional at his point in his frailty. That there's no surgery they should be doing. It's just
Right.
and our system is just not. No one. It's the elephant in the room. I hate to say it. And the regulatory framework. We don't have a nuance. It's turf war.
Right. And by the way, Michael, it's like a societal issue, right? Like we are
Yeah.
not good about talking about death
No.
and what death should look like. And we're all
And
very
doctors
scared
are
of
the
it.
worst, actually. I mean, I hate to say it, they're
Right.
there to solve. And so it's like we really need to have a better framework. And this isn't giving up. But you know what? What finally was part of the conversation was when he was readmitted almost a year ago. And it wasn't until the second night that my mom was able to talk to the nurse practitioner, palliative care, that was able to empower her, that was able to because she has this guilt that's associated, not wanting to
Right.
give up, not having the right information, then didn't want to get bombarded by her other children. Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So I fault the healthcare system with not, we really, I think, really need to be more flexible and nuanced. And like what you say, maybe he doesn't even like the hospice. We had to fight again for it. And maybe he doesn't really qualify because now he's dementia, he has heart failure, whatever the criterion. It's really supposed to be 6 months, but it should be a patient at home or medical at home model. And right now it's like we're just stuck. So I wish there was a nationwide program for that. And however, I don't know. It just seems like the hospitals. Oh, this is another thing. The hospitals here, the local Centera, they closed their hospice house. They
Oh,
couldn't even get enough admissions for, we're talking 20 or 30 bed place with
Centera is like a huge system too.
right, because it's just not. I was told that it's not part of the model, unfortunately. So
Yeah. Well, look, if you take a look at general statistics, right? WHO statistics, World Health
mhm,
Organization, our system ranks behind most of the modern world, in terms of, mortality and infant mortality and a slew of different things. So the big problem here in the United States to me is that we're not taking a holistic view of the system. It's almost become like too big to fail, to take us back to like the days when banks were too big to fail. Like this healthcare system is almost too big to fail. And if you were to really build it from scratch today, knowing what we know, wouldn't it look different?
mhm,
Would we still be using fax machines? Would we not have a national patient health identifier so that we could unify everyone's patient records? Would we not try and encourage people to be healthier prior to, acute care? Would we not be like stressing preventive care and primary care more, and building a system around that to prevent people from being upcycled in this funnel of costs? Like we have a system where healthcare is the number one cause of bankruptcy in our country.
mhm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, something clearly needs to change. I think it's going to take a ton of political conviction to do it. But, we've been talking about value-based care for 30 years. And why isn't it happening on a more accelerated rate? It's because there's too much revenue at stake for some of these other companies. So someone I think needs to come in and make some fairly dramatic moves on the healthcare front, but they need to be the right moves, not just any move.
Yeah. So with the value-based care we've had it, but it's such a small percentage.
Still
Yeah.
very little value-based care penetration in our healthcare system in this country.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe a safer conversation is going back to AI and healthcare. Isn't that easy to talk about?
It's
All
definitely
these.
easy. I'll say one last thing. About, the current, environment that we're living in. It's like, I've always ascribed to the be curious, not judgmental.
Mhm.
And we should all just be more curious and less judgy. And we should all be happy to engage in conversations with people who we disagree with to see if there is some common ground. And I think right now there's way too much judgment and too little curiosity. So before we move on to AI, just wanted to say that.
I love the curiosity. We need to be curious.
Yep.
But the AI, I was kind of joking, but not. But I think it is easier to talk about, other than governance. They don't really want to talk much about governance and privacy when it comes to AI, because that's then the sticky thing, right?
Well, we're all a little afraid of potentially like Skynet, right? Everyone's seen Terminator, right? That's like, and by the way, if the movies can think it up, it can happen, right? So I think, we could definitely see a world where things going ungoverned and unregulated is probably not the right move. And every great system that's created to help society inevitably has a dark underbelly where people, use it for a nefarious purpose. But that being said, I think overall, properly regulated AI can be really, really helpful to society at large and help elevate us from, menial task work to, everyone kind of, again, performing at the top of their license, if you will, which is the goal of most doctors out there. It's like they want to perform at the top of their license and don't want to be working on low level stuff. They want to be, working for a purpose, find their work meaningful and not be burdened with administrative tasks and those types of things. And I think artificial intelligence can do a lot of those things and decompress them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I imagine you're with your algorithms, you could probably, I mean, not that you're diagnosing things, but you could probably say, it looks like this person might have sleep apnea, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So our goal, and, certain of our algorithms are on the path to FDA approval. They're not FDA approved yet. But the only reason we'd really need FDA approval would be if we were diagnosing things. And right now, we're really not diagnosing anything. We're just noticing changes in behavior patterns, highlighting those changes of behavior patterns to the clinical team so that they can say, oh, we should take a look at this and let them do what they do best, which is, the diagnosing of things. So, from that standpoint, we can notice a change in heart rate, a change in heartbeat, different, arrhythmias, whatever it might be, but we're not going to diagnose them. We're merely highlighting a pattern change, a behavioral pattern change, a vital pattern change, and bringing that to the attention of those that need to see it.
Well, tell me, so how is your company distributed? Is it through home health companies? Is it through a hospital system? Someone discharges and then they get set up? Is there actual hardware in the home?
Yeah, so we have a hardware device. The hardware device has a radar dome built into it, plus a base on which it sits. And the device is Wi-Fi enabled, Bluetooth enabled, and cellularly enabled. So it's actually a very powerful edge computing device. It has, 2 microphones in it, so you can do some waveforming of sound. It's got speakers, so you can do bidirectional communication. And, what basically happens is you put it by your bedside, or you can put it in your living room or another location. But it'll monitor you passively. There's no camera on it, so there's not a ton of like patient health information, right? Patient identifiable health information on there. So it's all kind of just, here's the data that's coming off the radar. We then move that to the cloud for analysis, and we can highlight different things. And if we see things that we need to intervene on, i.e. something like we have a congestive heart failure patient who has stepped on the scale 3 days in a row and their weight has gone up by 2 pounds every day, hey, physician needs to know that they might be retaining fluids and therefore need to increase their diuretics, right? So those are the types of things that we would like to notice and notify docs of so they can then in real time, as opposed to waiting another 2 or 3 days and the situation becoming acute, in real time, they can push a new care plan to the bedside and our AI can get on and say, hey, Mike, it's time to take those pills, or could you step on the scale again? and do some of that low level lifting that they wouldn't necessarily be able to do on their own.
So that's cool. So I imagine, is this like your focus with different groups, like cardiology groups, and they are?
Yeah, the long-term idea is that we should be partnering with payers so that we can do population health management for them and help reduce the overall care cost of their patients while improving their overall outcomes. And that, if I'm a payer, I should willingly want to pay per member per month for our platform because we're helping them control cost of care in a way that no one else could. And we're helping keep that patient healthy at the end of the day.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So that's a key part of the model. And the same is true also of providers and health systems. So if I have a health system, and we spoke to a major health system about this exact use case, pre-surgery and post-surgery. Well, pre-surgery, someone could get sent our device if they're going in for a knee surgery, and we can make sure they're doing all the appropriate prehab ahead of their surgery, and then remind them that the night before they're not supposed to drink water or eat food or whatever it might be after such and such time. And then, when they get back from the hospital, they've already developed a relationship with our AI, and that AI can then say, well, now it's time for your physical therapy appointment. And now we need to do 3 leg lifts and keep track of all those different types of things. So that's a very valid use case as well.
Cool. And so with your, this is part of the RPM, remote patient monitoring? Is that kind of the same thing?
Remote patient monitoring, chronic care management.
Yeah.
It also goes into kind of now advanced primary care management. There's a number of codes that now include some form of remote monitoring and remote help that this falls into. And by the way, we don't want to be the company building those codes. We want to enable the people who are actually providing the care to build those codes and basically help them round out their practice and be able to do more with less.
Yeah, it sounds good too, because I think when we were talking prior to the green room, this is frictionless. There's no
Correct.
very little change behavior other than what they're natively using, I imagine, whether it's, I guess you probably have an app for whatever they do, but it's still working with, it's not like.
It's working with their voice, right?
Okay,
Our slogan's like, use your voice, like your voice, your health, we care. And we do care. And that's why we're building out the solution set the way that we are, to take into account clinical teams, patients, and caregivers all in the same tech stack, so that they can all collaborate around the patient. And so the patient can be involved in their care decisions as well. Right.
I think as we're coming towards the latter part of this, I think what I think would be really helpful for my audience that I'm trying to build every day, and by having good people like you, it's building more and faster, is you got a lot of pent up experience as a serial founder, with the health, resident entrepreneur. Share with us some of your lessons learned, thoughts that you've never would have thought. I know that, some of this we can dialogue back and forth, but I just think you have so much knowledge that you could share, from raising your first money to like that one thing that you thought never was going to work. Obviously we've got the don't give up the ship as a big, being persistent, being relentless, but I'd love to go through a little bit of lessons learned and stuff for entrepreneurs or.
Yeah. So look, my time at Startup Health and having the honor and privilege of coaching and mentoring those founders has been so valuable to me in a lot of different ways. One, I'm always impressed in that community with how people learn from each other. Like basically I'm an expert on office hours who's, can obviously share a lot of information and data and knowledge and help people avoid the mistakes that I've made throughout my company building career. And I've built multiple companies successfully at this point, but, made a lot of mistakes along the way for sure. And some of them have, been very, very painful. And so understanding that that's what the entrepreneurial journey looks like, it's a series of upward sloping roller coasters, hopefully, where like you start off, you're excited, you realize a challenge, you fall down into the chasm, if you will. And then you realize that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, you work towards that light milestone, and then boom, you're at the top of the roller coaster again. And then next milestone, doing the same thing, then doing the same thing. And that journey is not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. And seeing entrepreneurs support other entrepreneurs in that journey is like really, really powerful. So that's a big value of Startup Health and its community. Secondly, for me, being on those office hours, like I get inspired by all the work that is being done by all of these companies. And you're like, oh my God, they figured out how to do that. Like, that's amazing. And so, I love leaving the discussions where I'm coaching and mentoring founders more inspired than when I started. And then I share my expertise. And I think it's interesting as you build a career, and now I've got a 30-year career. Over that 30 years, I now take some of my knowledge for granted, but the ability to now share something that I think is common sense, or that I think is so readily apparent, but that new founder, it's a gold nugget. And I just help them save a year and a half of pain and turmoil, figuring it out some other way. So, that's really, really rewarding as well. But if I was going to give some lessons, I think, one of the big lessons is, don't say, why me? Say, why not me? Mm-hmm. Right. I think too many people have said, well, hey, I don't know why I would be the one to do this. Like, I don't have the right background. I'm not special. I'm not this, I'm not that. And I think that's all really defeating self-talk. And instead, you should realize that, and there's a Steve Jobs quote where like everything in the world around you was built by people just like you. That's always been really powerful for me as a thought concept. And so people should be saying, well, why shouldn't I be the one to solve this problem? And why can't I be the agent of change? Like, it's all got to start somewhere. And it starts with each of us owning our own behavior, having agency, and realizing that we can be the ones to pull it off. 2, it's about, mindset. And we preach this a lot at Startup Health, like having a batteries included mindset where you look at obstacles as opportunities is hugely valuable, because you could very easily get overwhelmed with all the obstacles that are in front of you. But if instead you look at them as a challenge that you and your team, were built to overcome, like, and have more of like bring it on, type of attitude, then you will persevere more often than not on solving those obstacles and moving on to the next one and growing and scaling and doing all those different types of things. And then 3, it's like really about being a lifelong learner. Like, I am, to this day, right? We just talked about turning 50, which I used to think was really old, but now I think is young. But as we turn 50 here, Michael, I'm still learning every day. And I might be learning from someone who's 25 and figured out, some new algorithm. And I'm like, oh, how'd you do that? Or I might be learning from a peer or someone who's a mentor. But this really is about realizing that we don't need to have the answers to all the questions to be successful. My daughter the other day came up to me and she's like, how do you always know the right answer for your business or what you're doing? And I'm like, I don't. I never have full information. I don't necessarily know what the right answer is, but I'm going on trying to I built out a framework to analyze the discussion. I've taken in different points of view from my team or a mentor, and I'm making the best decision I can with the resources that I have at my disposal. And that's really all we can be asked to do.
So obviously you don't know the question. Ideally, when you're at this, you're the CEO or president, chief strategy officer, where you are currently. Yep. Who knows if there could be an exit? You could go IPO. You could be at the company for 20 years. But where do you see yourself? Like, do you see you are an investor as well? Where do you see yourself in the next 5-7 years? Do you see yourself doing what do you see yourself doing more of, if not less of?
Yeah, I was speaking to a coach the other day, and I think this just summed it up perfectly. 2 words: builders build. Right. And I think I'm a builder. Creators create. I think I'm a creator. And I really enjoy that process. I enjoy taking that idea, making it real and making it matter to people. Like, I love the founder experience. So I think I'm going to continue building and creating for the next, part of next chapter. And I also think I like the mentoring and coaching a lot. So the opportunity to coach and mentor other founders, I still want to maintain the ability to do, because I find it really rewarding and gratifying, and I learn from that as well. So, I think that's where I'm going to be spending my time: building, creating, coaching.
I like that. That's cool. Well, man, this has been so awesome having you on. Anything else that we should just put out there in the universe before we call it a wrap?
Hey man, I'm going to go back to your opening of kindness and love. We need more of it. Let's not be afraid to engage in tough discussions with each other and learn someone else's point of view, and, be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah, I like that. Is any thing like how people find you, or anything you want to share about yourself?
People can find me on LinkedIn, where I'm pretty engaged and putting up some different pieces on thought leadership, et cetera. I actually just officiated my cousin's wedding to his beautiful bride in Boston, actually, where you just were, a month or two ago. And I wrote a piece on, how that reminded me of, the founder journey. And so, I'm definitely active on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can email me at Jamey, Jamey, at cairns.ai, CAIRNS, with AI right in the middle of that word. And you can find me on, Instagram at Jamey Edwards, or on Twitter at Jamey Edwards. I guess it's now X at Jamey Edwards as well. So happy to engage with people, and, always looking for potential investors or potential partners that want to collaborate.
Cool. Well, it's awesome to have you on. So glad you came, and have an awesome Thanksgiving with your family.
You too, Michael. Wishing you and everybody who's listening the best during this holiday season. I wish everyone a happy and safe one. And thank you for, again, sponsoring these very important discussions. I know you've had some really cool people on, so honored to be a part of your sphere.
Awesome.